Rip City Mornings.
Joining us now to talk about the NBA Finals, the championship that was won last night, and look into the NBA offseason that could be a potential game changer for these Portland Trailblazers. Friend of the program, my brother, Devon Pouncy. What's up, Pounce?
Let's do it, Justin. We back at it, man. We finally got a winner.
So we're going to get into some basketball real quick, but I was telling the audience and I was telling super producer Brendan that finally got to hang out with you in person. I saw you Saturday night. I was a little bit toasty. You probably realized that as soon as I walked in. Had a little bit of a sunburn, had a little bit of a toast going, but let's just say I was feeling no pain on Saturday night. I was enjoying the show of DJ Pounce on the ones and twos.
Hell yeah, that's right, man. You know, we get out, man. Had a good time. I saw earlier in the day, man, that you already were out and about, and I said, oh, man, I might have a chance to catch him tonight. Even though we didn't speak, I just know my guy. So when I saw you doing the rooftop thing during the day, I said, oh, yeah, I might be able to get him on the patio later on because it's not too late. It's later than usual, but it's not too late. And sure enough, he came strolling on in.
It's all about the start time, right? Because you got to get the ball rolling down the hill. There's a certain point where it's like, yeah, I'm not going out that late. But if you got to find that little sweet spot, we did. Good times were had. Good time probably had last night in Denver. Let's talk about this NBA Finals. You know, Pounce, I've talked about this throughout the playoffs, and I'm curious your thoughts because there's a lot of people in the media like, why don't we talk about Denver enough? Why don't we talk about Jokic enough? And I believe in the NBA, it is a drama league, right? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. The teams that have drama, infighting, player movement, disgruntledness, all that stuff, they're the ones that get talked about. Meanwhile, this entire time, the Denver Nuggets have had zero drama, no close calls, and just ran roughshod through the postseason and now walk away with the championship. I think they might be one of the most boring championship teams of all time, and I don't think they much care.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely don't think they much care. I mean, Jokic looked like he just didn't care at all after winning that championship.
No.
Yeah, the sportsmanship was great and going to shake everybody's hand. But, I didn't see like a lick of excitement out of the guy. Then in the presser, when he found out that the parade isn't until Thursday, he got mad because he wants to go back to Serbia and go play with his horses. But nonetheless, I do think this team, you know, they've been clear-cut. They've had a clean slate all year long, even throughout these playoffs. I mean, we've had all this drama regarding the NBA, whether it's, you know, personal drama with guys like Zion Williamson. You know, everybody's so speculative on what's going to happen with Ja Morant down the line. Even here in Portland, Dame's going on live and on every other podcast and kind of straddling the fence of places that he would want to be, even though he's been here, wants to be here. But I mean, it's just been a lot of drama all around, and those storylines have taken precedent over this team that has been the most consistent basketball team when it comes to just high-level play from start to finish this season, and they ended up getting the highest reward because of it. So, yeah, man, I think it's real interesting how everything played out as far as the headlines this postseason, and through it all, Denver was just a force to be reckoned with, and nobody could stop the big fella and his squad out there. And here they are, champions, and I don't know if they halfway care.
It didn't seem like it last night. You know, it's interesting. I remember a conversation you and I had at the very beginning of these playoffs, and I'm not saying you were wrong. It was an interesting conversation, which is who's the most entertaining? Who's the most entertaining player in the league? And the discussion was on Steph Curry. I think Jokic is the best basketball player in the world right now. Now, a lot of that's because he just won a championship. I think there's a case you could make for Giannis. I think there's a couple of other players you could maybe make a case for. But it's pretty set right now. Jokic, in terms of ability to play basketball, but he may be like the least entertaining greatest player in the world we've ever had.
Yeah, no, I think the thing about Jokic, and you know, I obviously been playing around with this conversation of who's the best, who's not the best, and it's a very fluid conversation. It changes by the day, sometimes even the hour. But I think with Jokic in particular, and I'm not trying to compare him to Dirk because they're two European guys who won a championship, but more in particular, when it comes to that conversation, like, I hold a lot of merit in two-way players. Like, what players can dominate both sides of the basketball to the highest of magnitudes? And I think Giannis is one of those dudes. Embiid, obviously, who won the MVP this year, is one of those dudes. And for the longest time, I was Embiid over Joker. But it comes a point where two-way, while it's a great skill set to have for any individual player to be able to impact both sides of the ball at a high level, there comes a point in time where guys are just transcendent. And I think Steph Curry was one of those dudes who came up and was just absolutely transcendent when it was LeBron's league. And of course, LeBron's transcendent in his own right as well. But when it was his league and he was known as the two-way guy, here comes Steph Curry coming out of the woodworks, and he's just shooting threes from beyond belief and doing things that transcends his ability or lack thereof to play on the defensive side of the ball. Again, taking it back to Dirk Nowitzki when he was on the Dallas Mavericks, the way that he played as that sort of stretch forward style of play was just a little bit different from what we saw from traditional power forwards in the league. And he was transcendent in his own right and was able to overcome guys who might have been better on both sides of the ball than he was. And I think we're seeing it again here with Joker. Offensively, probably the most skilled big man that I've ever seen in the league. And although, you know, he's not a super athlete, I mean, he's a big guy. He's not particularly known to be the greatest of defenders. What he can do offensively transcends any conversation of him being a two-way player or any inabilities that he has on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that's the word that I would use to describe Joker and why it is that he's the best. It's not because he has the complete package on both sides, and I do think that matters most of the time, but he transcends the game with what it is that he's able to do offensively, and it showed from start to finish this season, and it's been showing for the last few years leading up to him ultimately winning the championship, winning a couple MVPs, and he finally just had a healthy team around him this time around, and they were able to win it with ease, quite frankly.
Devon Pouncy joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. He's the host of the Wake Up and Win podcast. He is a basketball analyst for your Portland State Vikings, former co-host of mine, and all-around hoops dude. So let's talk about that transcendent part of it. You and I have had plenty of discussions about the ways that the Golden State Warriors, but really what Steph Curry has done to change the game, right? And you see the amount of three-pointers that have been shot in the NBA obviously keep going up and up and up every single year, and a big chunk of that was because that the Golden State Warriors proved that you can win at the highest level playing that way. I think Jokic is kind of an anomaly, Pounce. I think he is kind of a once-in-a-generation, once-in-a-lifetime type of guy. There's only one of him. But I do wonder, now that you've seen Giannis win a championship a couple of years ago, you've seen Jokic win a championship this year, I wonder, like, are teams going to maybe start changing the way that they build their organizations now, trying to think like, we got to find a big guy that can pass and can run the offense through the point center, which is kind of what Jokic did. That's going to be fascinating.
Well, I mean, I think we've already kind of seen those trends, and I think the game is just sort of like going positionless in a lot of ways. I think Jokic just makes it look a little bit different because usually, you know, again, Giannis, you know, obviously a freak of nature with his build and his athleticism, but you can use that skill set and some of those intangibles, if you will, anywhere. A guy who's got length, who's fast, who's quick, who can jump, you know, and do all the things athletically. And if you just start to tack on a little bit of player development with that, you got a dude who can impact just about any basketball team. Again, with Joker, he's just unique because the athleticism does not ooze out, but his skill set and his ability, and I think, you know, in some ways, you know, him obviously having the European background that he does, I think he's just showing why the game continues to go more global and how good guys really are beyond here in the United States of America. Although we've been like the dominant country within the sport of basketball, our greatest league, and in my opinion, the world's greatest league that happens to be played here in the NBA is starting to become more global, and we're starting to see guys from overseas really have a much bigger impact on the game to where now, in the last 5 years or so, it's been Giannis, it's been Jokic, you know what I mean? Even Luka to an extent. Obviously, he hasn't won a championship, but for a guy who hasn't won a championship, we give Luka really, really high praise for what it is that he's able to do. So I think it just speaks to, the continuous growth of the game and how we have these guys that are coming from overseas that can really play the game at an elite level, and they're really smart. And although their athleticism, obviously Giannis aside here, although their athleticism might not be the greatest, their IQ and the way that they play the game and how fundamentally sound they are, I think they're starting to catch up with a lot of what it is that we've been able to do here in America and dominating that particular sport. So I give Jokic a lot of credit. Again, I agree with you. He's the best player in the world. And, yeah, man, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with for a long time coming.
It is going to be fascinating because, Pounce, there's going to be a lot of youth basketball coaches, if they haven't already started, are going to start. And it's like, hey, who's the tallest guy? All right, you start dribbling, and you're going to start. Yeah. We're going to run the offense through you. And I think you're going to see maybe in a couple of years kind of an influx. But let's not worry about a couple of years. Let's worry about right now, Pounce, because the season is now officially over. The trophy has been handed out. And boom, now we go into the offseason. There are reports that the New Orleans Pelicans are very interested in Scoot Henderson. That could be a deal done with the Blazers. I have thrown out the theory that maybe the Pelicans are kind of tired of the Zion show, which, by the way, has gotten real interesting these last couple of days. It's been
more real than the NBA Finals.
Real crazy 3 days for Zion on social media apps. But that being said, if you're the Blazers and there is any sort of potential move to give up that number 3 pick and get Zion, a guy that has unbelievable potential, unbelievable explosiveness, Pounce, but comes at a potential price, which is can't seem to stay healthy. Do you have to pull the trigger there just for Dame?
Yeah, I think you do pull the trigger just for Dame. That's the reason itself. I mean, Dame, obviously this organization and Dame have a long-standing history together, and I think the organization has shown that they want to keep Damian Lillard around, and rightfully so. I mean, at least statistically, he might be coming off of the best season that he's ever had. I mean, I sat and watched him courtside drop 60 and 70. Like, it was crazy. So it's definitely a guy worth continuing to invest in. But with the struggles that this organization has had in bringing a player of even Zion's caliber to Portland to play with Damian Lillard, I think you kind of got to be quick with your decisions to be able to take advantage and sort of pounce on, and no pun intended, everybody calls me Pounce, but pounce on the opportunity to bring another star to play alongside Damian Lillard. And while, yes, Zion has rarely been able to play, he's barely been available. When he has been available, he has been elite, and I think he's lived up to some of our expectations of him. And he's still really young. I think he's a guy that you can still kind of transform. Obviously, coming in with the Pelicans, I don't think he had much leadership around him. I think once CJ went over to New Orleans, he's tried to kind of play that role for Zion. But I think Dame in particular, a guy who is a top 75 NBA player of all time, and a guy who has been known as being one of the best leaders, if not the best leader in basketball for quite some time right now, I think he would be the perfect fit to go alongside Zion. And I think Zion would actually listen to Dame and actually, take heed into what Dame is saying and trying to pour into him as a young player, a lot more so than he probably would if somebody like a CJ McCollum. That's not to CJ, but Zion probably feels like, I'm a bigger star than you, CJ. You can't quite say the same when it comes to Dame. So I think, I would go for it, and I'm not wasting any opportunities to bring a player of Zion's caliber here to Portland. You can live with some of the off-the-court stuff. You can live with some of the drama that comes around it. As you mentioned, it's a drama-filled league anyway, so if you're scared of a little drama, then, hey, you're probably in the wrong business here.
non-disclosure agreement, Zion. That's what you got to learn.
Yeah.
Learn. It's called an NDA.
He's young, man. He's young. He's young. He's young.
Well, the other part about this, and this will be the last thing before we let you go. If it is Zion, obviously there's a lot of ins, there's a lot of outs. The other option there in New Orleans, which I would be surprised because I don't know why New Orleans would want to part with Brandon Ingram. But if in fact the Brandon Ingram part of this is maybe they don't want to put all of their money into Zion, Brandon Ingram, and CJ, which they've got a lot of money wrapped up in those three guys. To me, you're the basketball guy. That's why we bring you on the show. I'm not the basketball guy, but it seems as though Brandon Ingram would almost be a better fit with Portland than Zion would when you look at his length, his scoring ability, what he could do in two-man game with Dave. That almost seems like a more ideal situation. You with me on that?
No, I am actually with you on that. But if I'm the Pelicans, I'm not getting rid of Brandon Ingram for Scoot Henderson. And that's ultimately what that comes down to. Again, Zion's a little bit more of a risk. You know, the best ability is availability, and he's not always quite available. Ingram tends to be more available, and Ingram, I do think, has a unique skill set, and you mentioned that length and his ability to play on that perimeter and obviously finish at the rim, score on all three levels. That's not a guy that I'm giving up for Scoot Henderson. So while I do think it's a better fit, I think it's more of a reality to be able to pull some strings and maybe bring Zion here to Portland more so than Ingram, because I think at that point, if that's the move that the Pelicans are trying to make, that's an absolute steal for the Blazers to give up that third pick and receive Brandon Ingram in return.
It's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks, going to be a fascinating couple of months. You can follow Devon Pouncy, Wake Up and Win podcast. You subscribe to it. Also, Pounce_station on Twitter. You can hear from time to time on this radio program. And if you are out and about on a weekend in the great Portland metro area, you might see my man on the ones and twos. I saw the party myself on Saturday. I had a great time. Nobody knows the vibe like my man Pounce. Hey, Devon, have a terrific week, buddy. We will look forward to talking to you again soon.
That's right. You as well, my man.